Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time for kind of a bonus video today, because Manuel has actually found an article which BVVD was interviewed in. This is from Exputer, and basically it goes through a bunch of questions for BVVD. If you don't know who BVVD is, he's the game director of War Thunder. He's the guy who's on like the sneak peeks and turns up and has a great time. Sometimes crashes vehicles in weird ways, but you know, he basically shows off on the Russian stream a bunch of different mechanics and also vehicles that are coming to the game. And he's really, you know, fun to watch, and also obviously has a lot of information behind him since he is the game director. And he did an interview with Exputer. And there's a bit of an issue with this interview. There's a lot of these questions which are just straight up lifted from the forums or general things which were being talked about at the time. And it just doesn't really give a lot of context for things, but there are at least some little nuggets of information that we can have a look at, right? So, first of all, the title is hilarious. Gaijin Entertainment plans to release 5 major War Thunder updates per year. Did you know they've done that every year for maybe 8 to 10 years at this point? But no, they're going to do it in the future, which is, you know, not really surprising because they've already done it in the past. So, as a tagline, I suppose if you're not, you know, interested or don't know about War Thunder, it might be a useful one, but for everybody else, it's kind of pointless. But anyway, it just goes through what the game is, and obviously you guys know what the game is, I know what the game is, so there's not really much point in going through it, apart from the fact that BVVD, or Vyacheslav Bulanikov, is the game director, so that's why it's probably a good idea to, you know, go through his opinions. They did an email Q&A session, so it wasn't a live one or anything like that. They just threw questions at him, and then he responded. One of the interesting things is, it would be nice to kind of do one of these at some point, but we'll see how it goes. You know, usually I just kind of like sitting on the side and watching things explode. I think it's much more interesting. So, obviously, he just goes through who he is, and just goes through a bunch of different stuff. It gives us some little snippets of kind of information, you know, the fact that they're going to support War Thunder for as long as people play the game, not really a surprise there. Obviously, these types of things sometimes upscale, downscale. The idea is, over time, as you do different stuff, you know, you have to react to what's kind of going on around the place. So if less people play War Thunder, or there's less money coming in, then obviously they'll have to downscale production. If more people play, they'll upscale. That's just how businesses go, right? So they have given some numbers. They'll continue playing it as so on and so forth. As the player count only grows each year, the latest record set in February 2024 was over 250,000 people playing War Thunder simultaneously across all platforms, and the total number of registered players is way over 75 million. So it is kind of nuts how many accounts are registered, and also the simultaneous number. So you're having millions of players play every day. Which is just crazy to think about. It's the most popular military action game, you know, something we've talked about before. One of the things I love doing at these times is I kind of like just sitting there and then going back to like 5, 6, 7 years ago, watching all of those videos about how Gaijin doesn't know what they're doing, how, you know, oh, the game's gonna die, and oh, everything's going wrong. And then just being like, what now? Where have you gone? Oh, it turns out now you've just disappeared. What a surprise, as always. But yeah. So yeah, they're going to do 5 major content updates a year, just like they have been doing, as always. It's just kind of how it goes. Like, I don't know why they would change tact, and I'm guessing the interview... Right, so the problem with this interview is pretty simple. Somebody has obviously told this guy that he has to do this interview. And what he's done is he's taken some of the most basic questions that you can think of and just thrown them that way, which is why it's hard to find nuggets of information that are actually that interesting. And you'll see what I mean as we go along, because we've covered a ton of these topics before, and many of them are just damp squibs. So, since the release, how would you say War Thunder has evolved in terms of scope and overall content, and what have some changes to Gaijin's approach been? Well, I mean, the game only released with Aviation, and also, War Thunder started as a World War II era plane simulation game. Wrong, BVVD. That unless you're talking about closed alpha access, what you're talking like when the game released, it released with Korean War era stuff. So be careful with that because people take that information and then they run with it. But if you actually have a look at the history of War Thunder, you got to be real careful with what is open beta, what is closed beta, what is closed alpha. But I suppose if you have a look at like the 2011-12 days, then yes, it probably was just World War II. But when the game released to the public, it had access to Korean War stuff. So yeah, but now, you know, the game has over 2,500 vehicles, you know, from all the way from 1900 to even technically the future of 2024. So yeah, the game evolution followed our long-term plans most of the time, as having air, naval, and ground vehicles in one game was something that we intended to do from the beginning. There were some key decisions that we made later. For example, at first, we were not sure about adding modern jets and high-tech weaponry, but eventually we found a way to make those fit in War Thunder gameplay. You remember how I've talked about over these years that these companies, they have very long-term plans. So what you have is you have a basic structure of what you're kind of working on, and then from there you have minor adjustments as you go along. So you have like an overall plan, and then you have, let's call like that, the macro plan, and then you have the micro areas which you bring along, right? And then those micro areas can be adjusted as you go along, but the major setup basically just, you know, keeps going and you just follow that trajectory. If stuff changes along the way, that's fair, but you don't change the macro, and that's exactly what War Thunder did. That's also exactly what a bunch of other businesses do, like, you know, across the board, which is why I was very surprised back in the day when I would talk about these things and the idea of them actually having plans for this stuff, that there was so much pushback from people saying that this is not what they were doing, and they were just like falling on their faces. But then I realized that when it comes to online discourse, it's not exactly the best place for discussion most of the time. So, as you can see, we've become the all-encompassing military vehicle simulation game that covers most aspects of combined arms warfare except infantry. We've seen reports of the real militaries and servicemen using War Thunder to train, and that says a lot about the game. I think that actually says more about the military, is how they really need to up their game when it comes to training. Like, I really think using War Thunder as an idea to be able to actually, you know, train with probably isn't the best idea, but never mind, it is how it is. We're also updating the game's visuals, yep, as usual, they just keep going. So do you have, this is where the questions get very like, okay, so you've obviously read the forums, right? Do you have any plans to change or improve the map designs? Despite being rich in detail, they appear smaller than one would hope for, with some of them having exposed spawn points. This is why ChatGPT is a scorn on the world. When you have a look at these questions, you'll start seeing themes. Now understand, this article came out 2 weeks ago. Somebody has literally taken an AI engine or an AI script or whatever and just typed in, what questions should I ask this guy who is related to this? And it's just got up and all of the things that were being talked about at that time and smashed them together and gone, okay, there you go, there's the questions. This is why modern journalism is awful and why people just watch YouTube instead. Because you have just stuff like this. This is not a question to ask, like BVD, the game director of the game, because you know exactly what he's going to say. We're going to look at the data, we're going to modify stuff as we go along. People's like opinions and stuff are going to be different as they move around the place, and that's it. We'll just keep going, and let's see, right? What does he say? A significant part of our players say that maps are too big. It depends on which vehicles players are using, what the playstyle is, etc. It's good that we have over 100 maps and a feature that allows people to blacklist maps they don't like, so each player eventually plays on the maps they like. What a surprise! We know that some of the maps are less popular than others. We study player feedback and the game's statistics data to understand what is wrong with these maps. Facing some of these least popular maps was one of the key features in our 2023 roadmap. Yeah, where they just stock, like, they just stuck, you know, don't go there zones. That was fun. Some maps were completely reworked, Cursed or Kuban, and we'll continue improving the maps. Well, hopefully they can rework Mozdoc soon. As War Thunder is constantly growing and evolving, adding new content means you have to rebalance and update older content as well to make sure that all aspects of the game work well together. That's why we constantly check player feedback on the maps, check the gameplay data. So yeah, this question, as I said, you know exactly what they're going to say. What is the point? right? And then the next one, like this, what is this? What is this question? One thing that many players would like to know is the source of the T-90M's armor, as they believe that the team drew inspiration from non-governmental and unreliable sources. Well, you can't get them from government sources, can you? Because they're classified, you absolute clown. And this is the problem. This is why I think this article was literally put into an AI generator. Or it was like, hey, so we'll do an article for you, but here's the questions. So literally you just take these questions and you make an article and we'll talk about this stuff. Because, once again, what is the answer to this question? We didn't use anything classified. We are using all of the available data that we can, including photos, including pictures, including publicly available stuff, and we're building the best models that we can. Like, for a fact, like, that's what's going on, right? And they're going to talk about all of these different things, but what is the use in this question, right? You cannot get reliable stuff on the vehicle. So this is just a platform for BVD to basically go, this is all the stuff that we're looking at. But difficult does not mean impossible. It does actually mean impossible, BVD. You can't do it specifically, right? If you want to read for this answer, go ahead. But for me, this is just a waste of time because we've been through this so many different times, right? How the data is collected, how people put together the data, and also why it can never be truly, 100% legitimate, and why there's always going to be conversations, discussions, and debates on whether it is correct. Happens every single time. And then this one, so this just comes straight out of the blue. Despite China having more potential vehicles in the ground as compared to others, its tech tree isn't as fleshed out as fans would like. Are there any plans to expand it sometime in the future? What is this question? Who has asked this? Who has asked this? Who, like, unless you're like an avid China main, who's asked this? Because when you actually have a look, right? If you have a look, let's see if I can close this. There you go. If you have a look at the game, if you have a look at China, and if you have a look at all of the stuff going on with China, they've rapidly expanded them over the last few years. The JH-7A, J11, JF, F16, J8, J7, all of these things. And then also in ground, they have a bunch of vehicles at the high echelons. And of course they're going to expand it. Of course they're going to add more vehicles in because it's another part of the game. And they also, right, they also constantly add vehicles to everybody. Every update of the last 3 or 4 years, every nation has at least got something. So the idea that they wouldn't get anything is just crazy. So yeah, of course they're going to add some more stuff in, right? So yeah, they're gradually introducing them at the same pace as in the case of other nations to make sure that all players get something new. Yeah, everybody gets something every update. That's something that they changed compared to the old updates. Fantastic period. Much better than before. The World War II era vehicles for China are a bit different story, as the Chinese army used captured and imported vehicles at the time. That mix, though, is also quite unique and interesting in terms of gameplay. Yeah, it is. It's pretty fun. And then, right now, China has 3 top MBTs with the highest battle rating in the tree. It's more than Russia-USSR tech tree and the same as in the USA tree, even though the Chinese tech tree had been added to the game much later than those two, which is why this question makes absolutely no sense. When we've talked about it in the past, 2 or 3 years ago, China has rapid expansion on its arms, right? China is going to rapidly expand when it comes to War Thunder. And guess what they've been doing? Rapidly expanding. And for some reason, this question's here going, well, a bunch of people don't think it's rapidly expanded quick enough. Anyway, what are some things that players can expect to see in 2024? BVD talks about the roadmap, obviously, which is around the place. Check it out. We did some videos on it. We talked about it. That's going to give you way more information than anything else. And also, it's quite funny. He says, we don't usually disclose anything specific beforehand. As usual, we'll have more enough signature vehicles in 2024 being added to the game. But we don't want to spoil any surprises, which is fair because they all get leaked anyway. Such as the most recent update, the vast majority of the vehicles already being leaked. So there you go. It kind of sucks. Wish it wasn't the case, and it would be nice to have a little bit of hype around things, but it's what happens when you have a very leaky ship. Then you have, I'm curious to know whether you like to play War Thunder competitively or casually, and if so, what are some of your favorite vehicles and your go-to nation? So BVD pays 20 to 25 hours a month of War Thunder. So this is the game director. He plays this much. Now remember, his personal experience in the game doesn't really mean a lot compared to the amount of statistics and everything that he goes from. So the amount that he actually plays makes no difference towards his general opinion on these general things. Or at least hopefully it doesn't. Because player experience or human opinion, it should be on the lowest form of totem pole compared to everything else when it comes to these stuff. So the next thing is he plays USSR. He's a Russian main. I'm gonna leave that there. And I know already what people are gonna say. Alright? I'm not even gonna bother. Alright? You know what? If you want to go watch the Why Gaijin Loves Russia video, okay? Just have a bit of fun with it. Always enjoyable. But he also plays Germany, US, Israel, and Sweden because he likes the meta stuff, does our boy. France, Italy, and also Britain and Japan GTFO'd. I'm kind of surprised that he doesn't like Japan, because we have seen some things in his past that have pointed us towards certain directions. But you know what is fantastic? He plays ground realistic battles, air realistic battles, and naval arcade battles. And you know why that's fantastic? That's exactly the game modes that I play, and he's a Chad. So we're good. You know, we're playing the game correctly compared to BVD. That's what should be focused on. That's what should be had fun with. It's weird having people of similar minds. And it also shows that, you know, different people in very different walks of life can also enjoy the same things. But yeah, the funny thing back in the day that used to happen a lot was people would turn around and go, "Oh, well, Gaijin don't play their own games," because it's very easy to say that, right? It's very easy to kind of sit around and just say, "Oh, well, you know, you don't play your own stuff. You don't know what's going on." And well, they do play their own stuff, maybe not to the same level as very experienced players, but also at the same time, who cares if they play their own stuff? The main thing is if they look at the stats and what the stats bloody say. Because the stats are you idiot. It's basically looking at your stats and going, okay, so how are you playing the game? If you're telling me that I don't play the game, that's fair, but how about we look at your stats since you do play the game a lot, and then we can work out what to do. So they have their experience and also your experience, and they don't have to listen to you. It's perfect. It's a fantastic setup. But for some reason, people always kind of looked at it very, very odd. So yeah, BVD plays the game. Who could have seen that happening? And then this is just the kicker. I remember about a year ago. Oh, do you bot? There was a post on Reddit that made it seem like playing War Thunder would classify you as a national security risk. There are several things wrong with this sentence. Although the story was later confirmed to be fake, is there an actual real story you have heard from fans that would be concerning similarly? We have not heard about actual stories like this, but I wouldn't be surprised if some military vehicle production company would really start asking questions about War Thunder experience. You see, War Thunder fans love military vehicles, some of them a bit too much. Some of them draw some very weird art with certain vehicles, and that means that they will be highly motivated to work at a company that is somehow connected to those. You know, one of the weirdest videos I ever watched was a documentary which was talking about the fact that there was this dude who liked to have certain relations with his car, and he actually met another dude who also had certain relations with his car. And they met up and, you know, they kind of bonded over it. And then it turned out one of the dudes literally cheated and screwed the other man's car. And the reason why he found out was one of his pubes was on the bonnet. There you go. That's about as useful as this question. It's the same as in-game development companies. You are better at creating games if you're a gaming enthusiast yourself. Obviously, having a history of intense arguing in the War Thunder forums would not help in any job application to such a company. Yeah, no, right. Do you see what BVD is saying here? If you are a forum debater, you are worthless. So you need to have a few more other skills along the way. So that part of your life, out the window. But you could get other skills in other areas. BVD, once again, showing that he is indeed a based human being. Do you have any... He didn't talk about Discord arguing, though, so, you know, have at it. Have a bit of fun. Do you have any other projects at work? If so, could you tell us about them? Well, yeah, so they basically... BVD talks about War Thunder. I mean, he's literally the game director. If he's working on other stuff, I'd be kind of surprised. But, yeah, they also talk about Aces of Thunder. We talked about this last year, actually. This is going to be a PlayStation VR game, which is going to be out. And it's a version of War Thunder where you pay a specific amount of money. You get access to a bunch of different vehicles for free, and you just kind of play them around and have a good time. So, yeah, if you have PlayStation VR, I don't know if it's going to come to other VR devices. I mean, the way that it was pitched previously is that it was a exclusive on the platform, but it might start off as an exclusive and then, you know, be a timed one and all that. So yeah, make sure to check that out, have a bit of fun with it, and see. But yeah, there are a bunch of other things that Gaijin as a company is working on in the pipeline, but obviously BVD, being the game director of War Thunder, he really ain't going to be involved in those, right? Like, he's going to be around the place. It was mentioned a while ago that if Gaijin knew the state of Steam, it wouldn't have launched War Thunder there. It was mentioned a while ago, yeah, by the CEO of Gaijin. Does it still hold the same opinion? Does the monolith of Gaijin still hold the same opinion? And will Gaijin Entertainment continue to make its website the main channel for downloading games on PC? Or do you have plans to release some of your titles to stores like Epic Games and Steam? There's so many... Enlisted is literally coming out of Steam. War Thunder is on Steam. Crusade Fawad, terrible name, also on Steam. The other game that they do, which I can't remember, also on Steam. All of the games that they've been involved in, Atomic Hearts, on Steam. Like, my head's breaking, man. My head's breaking. But yeah. But the problem is, you are asking a game director this question. You do not ask a game director this question. You ask a CEO, a CCO, or a part of the publishing department to decide this. BVD is to do with the game. He's not to do with the actual distribution of the game. Two very different ideas. This is asking a developer to do marketing. It makes no sense in order to do that stuff. And yeah, it makes the most sense that Gaijin to do everything through their own platform because they can control it 100% compared to what you see previously. Which is either, you know, Valve taking a percentage, another product taking a percentage, or what we have right now, which is where you have a console version of War Thunder, a multiple console version of War Thunder, and what is happening is they don't get access to a bunch of features that the PC guys do because of the control by the third party. Removing a middleman or removing a third party is fantastic to do. It's the best thing to do whenever it comes to anything. Stuff like realtors, just try and get rid of them. Stuff like, you know, marketing arms, try and get rid of them. What you want to do is you want to just clean the slate and get rid of all of that stuff. And then, of course, the last question, is there anything else you want to share? Something we haven't touched upon yet? Basically, no. Check the roadmap and also, of course, leave feedback. That's basically it. So the article itself, it gives us, as I said, a little bit of information, but the vast majority of it is kind of useless. But welcome to online articles, I suppose. Maybe this is a time to collect some questions of our own and have a bit of fun with this general idea. If you want to check it out, make sure to do so. I'll leave a link to it in the description. And as always, look after yourselves. Peace be with you. And I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Schnitzel Stroker, Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Carrion Crow, Nicholas Richardson, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, B. Young, Opium Prime, Masonocrat, Lafouche, Alan Hacker, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.